Hi, I'm Jo Clark, and thanks so much for joining me today. This is the Redefining Midlife podcast, a podcast designed for the 40-plus woman who is determined to challenge society's myths and beliefs around midlife. It's for the woman who is inspired and ready to define midlife her way. Join me each week as I chat to health and wellness experts for up-to-date information on how to live well as some special conversations with incredible everyday women redefining what midlife can look like. Here's to making our next half of life even better than the first. It takes a lot of time and energy to create this podcast, so I'm always very grateful when listeners take a minute or two and hit subscribe, write me a review, and share favourite episodes with friends. This all helps a podcast to reach more people, and in turn it can help inspire and empower even more midlife women. And a very big thanks to Tish for leaving me such a special review. She wrote, "I've thoroughly enjoyed every episode to date, and with each episode, I come away with something so relatable. I've cried, I've laughed, but most of all, I've learned something new about myself." You know, if you can implement just one thing from each episode, you're going to grow into that beautiful, strong, and courageous woman that you know you can be. And Jo has given us the tools to do so in a podcast. So I'd encourage you to plug your earpods in and start thriving rather than surviving, or jump onto her website and check out the other tools that Jo has to offer. You won't be sorry. And I could never get tired of hearing Jo's voice. Thanks so much, Tish. That's pretty special and humbling to read out loud. And I really appreciate the time you've taken to leave that lovely review. Now, on to my wonderful guest on the show today. I'd love to introduce Peta Borg to you all. From visual art teacher to creating a successful business supplying hampers and gifts, Peta is another incredible example of how the skills and knowledge you gain in one career can be transferred into something completely different and far more satisfying down the track. Through her business, Hamper Culture, Peta also champions and supports other small creative businesses by showcasing their products, works, and talents in her bespoke hampers. It's also very special. I know you're going to love Peta's warm energy and story today. Enjoy. Welcome, Peta, to the Redefining Midlife podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on as a guest, and I'm looking forward to finding out a lot more about you and your business and what life is like for you now as a midlife woman.
Thanks, Jo, and thanks for having me on today.
Absolute pleasure. Now, you and I connected on Instagram a few years ago, and we were just starting in our new businesses. So it was great that, you know, we can see how each other's business is evolving. But there's a lot we don't know about each other personally. We sort of support each other with our different messages from time to time. So if we think back to not so modern day Peta, turning the clock of time back to younger Peta. So what was life like for you when you were a young teenager and young woman?
Look, I had a wonderful childhood. We were a very close-knit family and a lot of really wonderful friends that are still lifelong friends in our lives now. So my mum and dad had such a great sense of adventure and travel, so we did lots of travelling, and those experiences and memories are just so wonderful to think back on those today, because we did extraordinary trips with 21 people across 3 families and to amazing places within Australia, and, camped on the side of the road and cooked and cleaned as we went, and it was just such wonderful memories growing up. So I was born around Bankstown area in Sydney, and I'm one of 3, so I have an older sister and a younger brother. And Dad worked in the bank, so quite a traditional, job to have. And so then Mum and Dad moved out to Moorebanks on the outskirts of Bankstown and Liverpool, so sort of in between those 2 suburbs. But it was quite a new suburb to grow up in, so lots of young families. The local Catholic primary school where I attended, my sister was the first year to go through and start that off. And, lifelong friends, as I said, that we've continued to be friends with even to this day. So, yeah, growing up was great. Sort of look back at all of those situations now, and I think, wow, if social media was around to catch us out when we did something wrong, or when we took a sneaky smoke, or our
Yeah.
first drink, there was no record of that for someone to find out about that. So there was a lot of things that I think that we were able to do and get away with without being found out. But there was also that sort of innocence as well, like growing up, that we were sort of like the first of many, in a lot of different situations when it came to things like that, and social media and being accountable. And I know with my children now, I look at, where are they? What are they doing? Especially my youngest, who's just got his license and he's driving, just to sort of make sure that he's okay. But we would go for hours and hours with our parents, knowing where we were, what we were doing. As long as we were home when the street lights were on, we were okay. So, and they knew where we were. They knew that we were at least at somebody's house down the road, or, it was such a nice period of time to grow up in, I think. So that was really lovely. Yes, and I met my husband while I was at school too, in my final year of school, and so we dated through university, and and then married straight out of school. So
and
so
still married.
Still married. Yes. What am I now? 28, I think. Yeah, 28 years. I think we've been now.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
that's fairly uncommon, isn't it, to have a partner that you met at such a young age, and through all of the life changes, and you're still married. Look, there's something worth celebrating. Well done.
Thank you.
Now you
I think so too. He probably thinks the same as well. I think so too. He probably thinks the same as well. Putting up with each other, but no, it's and it has always been a team situation. And I went to university after leaving school to become an art teacher. I loved art, and I also loved teaching, and there's a strong history of teaching in my family. So my uncle was actually my deputy principal when I was at high school, so there was no putting a foot out of line at high school in some instances. So finished uni and got married and straight into the workforce.
Right. And did you travel much with your job as a teacher?
I did. I actually had to go to Castle Hill because it was the old Teachers College at Castle Hill in Sydney. So, and I lived, as I said, around Moorebank. So it meant that I had to travel initially by public transport. So it was an hour and a half each way to university, and sometimes you'd only be going for an hour lecture. So I became very good friends with a few of the girls in my university class, one in particular where, we're both actually such good friends to this day. We're godparents to each other's children. And so I became sort of like an adopted daughter to their family, and would stay there on occasion, so I didn't have to keep travelling back and forth. But it was really lovely, a lovely group. I think we just had all girls in our university class that we went through. So, but it was lovely. But, the travel to get to that was quite tiresome. It'd be 2 trains, 2 buses, that was just one way.
And back then, uni was full time. Like my kids are blown away when I say it was 5 days a week, and they were full hours. You might have a couple of hours in between if lectures or tutorials or whatever didn't line up. But it was very different to what student life is like now.
Absolutely, yeah. So when I purchased my first car for $1,600, and my grandfather helped me to pay that off.
Luxury, hey?
And, my little Toyota Corona took me to and from Castle Hill, and it was great. And then from university, I was already engaged at this stage, so became married literally in the January, and then got a job up in Springwood, up in the Blue Mountains. So we moved down to Narellan on the outskirts of Camden, and I had to travel up and down the Blue Mountains every day for work, which was nice in a sense, because it gave me a little bit of distance between the students that I was teaching up there to my own personal life. So I wasn't answering the door to my pizza delivery on Friday night, and it was a student of mine, delivering pizza. But it was a lovely first school to teach in, and really lovely students. And because there was not really much of an age difference, as I said, came straight out of university into that job. So really these students were only a few years younger than I was. So and we've remained really good friends with quite a few of them. So I've seen them now get married and have children of their
Oh,
own.
lovely. Yeah.
So it's sort of like full circle in that sense. So
Yes.
yeah, and then I ended up getting a job at a school down in Campbelltown, so an all-girls Catholic school at St. Pat. So I taught there for quite a few years, and then I realised that during that period I had quite a few fertility issues. So we had to go through quite a few different procedures to fall pregnant, but of course, that happened when I was on holidays, when I was nice and relaxed and everything had been fixed so I could fall pregnant. So, yeah. And so I remained teaching throughout having all of my kids, which gave me that little bit of flexibility. You could have your maternity leave, but then also go back to teaching when it suited you on a casual basis. I had my mother and my mother-in-law help me out with looking after the kids. And at that time too, when our daughter was born, we actually purchased a business. So my husband left his full-time occupation and we bought a business, which was extremely stressful at the time. Husband finishes work, we go into debt and buy this business, and we have our first child all within a matter of 4 months of each other. Yeah.
Did you work in the business then, Peter? Was that something that you did, or were you still doing a couple of days teaching?
Yeah, no, I was helping out with accounts and then teaching a couple of days. And yeah, so up until I think it was October last year, I was still doing the accounts for the business.
Oh, were
so
you?
we've still got that business. And so I'd like to say that I resigned. Jimmy likes to say that he gave me the sack. I think there's a mutual like area in there that we realised that what I do was sort of taking over my time and my responsibility, and it needed someone to step in to do that, which wasn't me. So,
so that was obviously
nice.
a smart business choice then, because that business. How many years has it been going now then?
Oh, we've had the so it's a food distribution business. So we've had that for 23 years. So literally,
wow, yeah.
22, 23 years. So literally when our first daughter was born, that's when we bought the business. So, and, Jamie works really long hours. So initially when he was working those really long hours and, I pretty much became like the only parent there with the kids, and he would, leave 3:00 in the morning and get home at 6 and 7 at night. And some days he wouldn't even sort of see them within that period of time because he was gone. So, but over the years we've been able to streamline it. COVID was wonderful because that allowed us to sort of look at maybe adjusting things to suit our lifestyle opposed to like the business running our life. But it is difficult because you can't really step away from it. We can't do too many holidays as in time off. So we take advantage of the basic long weekends and a little bit of a break over Christmas time. So, but yeah. So that's where that sort of all, evolved from. Yeah.
And so when did you decide that you'd had enough of teaching? At what point, like how many, was it a fairly recent decision?
No, it was something that, I could never really work full time with looking after the kids. Otherwise, I was pretty much just throwing the kids into care, 5 days a week. And I know that that's something that families have to do, but financially, I didn't need to be working full time. But yeah, I think because I had that sort of flexibility that I didn't need to, but I still loved teaching, and I ended up just finishing up on a casual job, just doing, picking and choosing when I wanted to work, but also being able to say, I can't work today, I'm doing this with the kids. And I was always doing my 1 day of accounting for our other business. So, love the teaching, but it was the politics of the teaching, all the admin and, all of that accountability. I was just looking at all this red tape to go through, and then reaccreditation. I'm sure that you know all about that, being a previous teacher and teachers listening to that. I think during that reaccreditation time with teachers, it was predominantly females that were disadvantaged because they were the ones that were well, a lot of them were off on maternity leave when those rules were put in place, that all had to sort of happen again. So, and I thought, I'm in a casual teaching environment, not teaching my own subject, sometimes just walking in there with nothing set for the kids, and I would just be asking them what they'd done the previous lessons and just sort of
you wouldn't
flying
be
by the
paid
seat of
enough
my
some
pants.
days if you were doing that.
Oh, it was lucky because the kids at the school didn't realise that I had gone from full-time teaching into casual teaching. So they just, they weren't running amok like I know that they do with some of the casual teachers that come in and give them really quite a hard time. So I was lucky in that sense. And a lot of them were actually my kids' age. So they didn't actually go to that school, but they had friends that went there. So I actually knew a lot of the students at that time.
Yeah. Well, that would have helped for sure.
Oh, it did, yes. And I knew their parents, so I could say to them outside of school,
yeah,
"You're being a rat bag today."
Yeah.
Or they would apologise.
Pull them up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you decided that, all right, I don't want to go down the teaching path anymore.
Yeah.
And then what was the catalyst for the next, well, what was the next step? Did you just go, bite the bullet, I'm leaving, I'm not going to do teaching anymore, or did you do something else?
I wanted to sort of still remain like in a creative environment. And at that time, I was still dabbling with some painting, but I also, around our area, there was quite a strong sort of artisan scene where people were creating different products and starting up businesses and doing really great things in the Camden area. So that time, I decided to put on a local artisan market where it was like a showcase of all of these like businesses. And it was great. It was such a nice, like, nurturing environment. And the market would only be twice a year. So Mother's Day, Christmas, where people needed to buy something. But we'd also have live music and also a charity component to that as well. So we supported quite a few charities whilst doing that. So it was a lovely environment. And from that came the idea of having a locally constructed hamper based on all of these great local products that were being curated within the local area. So that's how that first initial idea came, was to showcase everyone's work in a hamper and support local.
Okay, so tell listeners exactly what your business is now. So that's interesting, because I didn't know how your business evolved into for you to say, right, I'm doing this.
Yes. Okay. So that's how that happened. So that's been over 5 or 6 years now that's happened. And there's been a change in business structure, business name. So I had a business partner at the time. I don't have one now. So my business name is Hamper Culture. So it grew from that market scene and having that sort of one-on-one with the makers and promoting their work. So I've got lots of really lovely relationships with suppliers, and it's, for some of them, using their products in my hampers is so beneficial to them. It's like that ripple effect. You're supporting one person, but then you're supporting them and their family and then their business, and everyone benefits. So Australian made is really important to me. So although, if someone asks for a bottle of Moe or Verve, well, that's different. I have to support a French champagne house at that stage. But if it's locally made, and it's got to be of a certain quality too for me to want to promote in my hampers. So the actual look of the hampers are quite, I think, sophisticated. There's no bright colours. It's not too, I suppose, multi-focused. It's very monotone, but classy, using Australian products and good quality products at the same time.
So is that something that you're loving doing? Obviously it was a catalyst for your business, but sometimes you get into something and go, I don't know if I want to do that anymore, but that's something you're enjoing doing.
Absolutely. And having full creative control over what goes in, what the hampers look like, how they're sent out to people. If I can, I try to do a hand delivery service. So I employ a mother and daughter team here that are couriers.
Lovely.
And so if I can give them work and get them to send, hand deliver a hamper rather than having to wrap it up in
Yeah.
bubble wrap and paper and box it up and tape. It's such a nice experience to get that handed
Mm.
to you, like
Mm.
in hand and
Yeah.
personally delivered. It's so lovely. So, and there's not too many couriers that you can rely on to do that kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
nice that I've got this beautiful mother and daughter team
Oh,
that
that's a lovely touch.
yeah, so dependable. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is
And
really
Peter,
good.
are your hampers Australia wide, like, or are you really looking at more of your Camden, Sydney area?
I, I I try to use most local things, but I have branched out into some other states. But once again, still supporting that family unit. So these are businesses that are, most of them have been family run
Mm.
and operated. So that's really great. I love hearing the story about the suppliers and where they come from. And, it's like talking to an old friend when you get a phone call and they might just want to discuss your order and you sit there chatting to them and then you go, oh, that's right. What were we talking about? We're talking about one of the products, but just learning about them and their families. There is one in Western Australia, one in South Australia,
Oh,
Victoria, and
yeah.
Queensland. So no one from the Northern Territory supplies me with any products at the moment. But if
Yeah.
anyone's listening and they've got a great product, let me know. But
Yes.
yeah, it's quite a diverse look, and the products range from anything from food to there's a local business here. I think you know Fiona from Little Boco. She makes beautiful muslin wraps, baby wraps. So I have baby hampers, I have
Mm.
celebration hampers, food hampers, beauty products, a variety of hampers for all different sorts of occasions, as well as a corporate gifting service. So if a business needs something branded on a regular basis, so I do real estate, new cars,
Oh, wow.
builders. So there's, yeah,
There's a
such
lot
a
of
broad,
scope to it then when you
yeah,
start to sit and think about what you could offer and what sort of businesses that you could help.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it's, and that's what I love. I love helping them make that connection with their clients because
Mm.
not always, I mean, everyone wants to feel like they're a valued client. And if you've spent thousands and thousands of dollars building a house and you get a little fold down esky with a couple of cans of beer in it from a builder, you sort of go, oh, that's not something that I really want to celebrate with. Not to say that that's entirely bad, but, like it's so lovely. You know yourself. It's so lovely to be valued
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
client and to have that come back to you and say, thank you for investing in my business. Thank you for investing in me. Here's just a little token of my appreciation
Mm.
for you investing your, hard-earned money in my business. So
Yeah.
it does go a long way. And that client referral is what brings people back.
Yeah.
It's those reviews and also how they're made to feel after they've finished the monetary transaction. We can all spend money, but it's those little touches in the end that
Yeah.
that bring people back and yeah, make them feel valued and appreciated for spending money with them. So
Yeah. So apart from the mother and daughter that you sometimes get help deliver the hampers, is most of this done by, like, do you do all of the other work yourself or do you have some help?
depending on what time of the year it is, so Christmas
Oh,
time,
of
I
course.
always
Okay. Yep.
yeah, that's usually my peak period. So at that time, I usually get people in to help pack hampers because I can only be in one place at one time.
Mm. Mm.
But I don't know how it happens, but I ended up tying all of the bows because the people that I have come in, they do a good job, but they always go, oh, you do them so much better. So you don't tie all the bows. So I don't know how many bows I tied at Christmas time, but it was a lot of bows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's lovely. I get mum and dad that help me out a little bit too. Like they're both retired, so they love sitting down and cutting ribbon and having
Mm.
a cup of tea and chatting. And then, yeah, I've got some really great friends, some, people that I call in especially to help at that time of the year. So whenever there's that peak in personal gifting, like
Yes.
Christmas time, coming up to Mother's Day, that's another time where I may need people to help out with that. So yeah, so I do most of everything myself. I do employ a bookkeeper to do. So I've handed over the bookkeeping of our other business to her, and she has mine as well. So that just takes a layer of stress off the plate for me.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that, you know, loves the fact that I got that last cent in the bank kind of thing. And as you know, I'm part of a marketing community, so I do use that. Social media marketing is quite huge. It brings in probably about 80% of my online
Wow.
business. Yeah. So it's quite big. And most of that comes from Instagram. So making sure that you're present there and that people can see you. And I suppose one thing that I've learned is that anyone can sell, you know, a hamper, but people are going to buy it from you because they feel comfortable in
Yeah.
buying it from you,
Yeah.
and they build up that they feel like they have that personal connection to you and feel safe buying from you. So yeah, I love the marketing side of the business, and obviously the creative side, so the graphics. And I did have a web designer build my website for me, but that was quite a team effort because I liked having a lot of input into that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes they do too, because some people come in there with a clean slate and have no idea about the direction of where they want creative to look or how it's going to look on the website. But I liked being part of that process and having into that. So I take all my own photos of my hampers. So part of my art teaching role was a photography teacher. So
Oh, is that right?
yeah,
Isn't
I
it
love
amazing?
taking
So
photos.
that it certainly wasn't wasted. A lot of the skills that you learned from
No,
teaching, you've been able to transfer into what you're doing now, which is great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it still ticks those creative boxes for me.
Yeah.
And one thing that I do enjoy is doing product photography. Like I love that, doing, you know, highlighting the products that go into my hampers. And yeah, I really enjoy that side of it. So,
Well,
but
they
I've
always look beautiful, Peter. Like whenever you post on Insta, they are beautiful looking graphics. So where can people, if people are listening and they're, oh, and check out her hampers, where can they find you on Insta?
on Insta, I'm Hamper Culture _AU. Oh, yeah, that's it. And on Facebook as well. So
Lovely.
you can't miss it.
Yeah.
I think my hampers have quite a unique look.
Yeah, they do. They're beautiful.
Yeah,
So I'll
so
definitely put those links in for everyone as well in the show notes if for you to
sure.
look at. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And what are
yeah.
you hoping for the direction of the business? You've got it started. It's no longer a baby. It's had a few years where you've been able to develop it and fine tune it. Are you hoping for it just to stay as it is and because of the work-life balance, or have you got bigger ideas for it?
Yeah, like that's sort of the crossroad at the moment, Joe, because I turned 50 last year and my husband is a couple of years older than I am, and we're both looking at that time in our lives where we want to be able to enjoy the fruits of our labor and do the holidays and do a bit more travel. And our youngest is finishing school this year, so he's in his final year. So we won't have that sort of same pressure on us in the next few years to have to work as hard as what we're doing now.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm happy for things to continue on with the way that they are. It for me, it has got a great work-life balance because it gives me the flexibility to be able to do things and attend things when I need to, but it works around both of our lifestyles as well. So I'm very fortunate to have that. It's completely home based, but in saying that, we do both businesses are home based businesses. So we've got the facilities and the areas to do that. We live on acreage, so we've got that, which a lot of businesses don't have that.
Yeah.
So they've got to outsource or set up their business in a particular area or factory unit. We're able to do that here, which is good. Sometimes it's a double-edged sword. You never sort of step away from work because it's always there.
Yes.
But it's also been allowed, especially my husband, to spend more time at home and enjoy what he's worked hard for these past 23 years. So that's been nice. So I think we're both looking at the future of the business. I know that down the track, there's a couple more years where my husband wants to then look at selling that business and maybe do something different, but just take some time off, enjoy go on holidays. So I'm not sure. My business might be the business that we keep and that takes us through to our retirement. I don't know at this stage. So it has the capability of being bigger. It's quite boutique because I don't, if someone rings me up and wants something specific, then I can do that for them. Where there's not a lot of businesses that allow that flexibility or that capability to make something that custom made. So, yeah, I've got great people around me that are there to help when I need them and, employ them when I need them. But at the same time, it's nice not to have too many employees that you are feeling like that pressure, that financial pressure to keep them going. And my husband is a sole trader. So once again, he doesn't have employees. So although it does make it difficult at times, it also means that you don't have to have, all of those employee dresses,
Yes. Yeah.
So
it sounds like you've got a great balance there. And it'd be interesting seeing what happens because this time of life, isn't it? You start to think about, a couple of years down the track, we want to be able to do this, or it'd be nice. Yeah, there's just that in the back of your mind not all the time, but that helps you form those decisions that you're going to make.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a good segue actually into this stage of life, Peter. Like, we're I suppose we're just starting to, because we're experiencing it ourselves, we're starting to talk about it more. And it wasn't something that was always spoken about. When people were our age, 50 and 50 plus, and you go, oh, well, they're so old, they're almost out put onto the pastures and they'll be right to look after themselves. But there is so much left ahead of us, and to start thinking about how you want it to look. And that can be exciting and daunting.
Yeah,
all in the same time sometimes.
I mean, I think I can remember growing up and my mum turning 40 and I used to think, gosh, that's old.
Yes.
And now, like when I turn 40, I just think what you perceived at a certain age growing up is very different to experiencing it now. And as you say, I can't remember my mum talking about menopause, but, as I got older and towards that sort of age myself, I was asking her questions, HR therapy and all these things. And then recently she told me that there's some sort of arthritic condition through our family. And I'm like, is that why my bones are aching getting out of bed in the morning? So now I've got to investigate that. And I sometimes I shouldn't laugh, but I know looking at my parents, they're in their 70s and my in-laws are in their 70s and they spend a lot of time at medical appointments and doctors and all those sorts of things. And I think, I don't want to be one of those people that just is always at the doctor's. But I just think your body starts to tell you that it needs help through some of these phases. So and things like happen as you get older that, it's just part and parcel of getting older. For instance, my brother just found out that he has an iron disorder and every 6 weeks he has to give blood because his iron levels are too high. But this is something that's happened later in life and it's actually a genetical thing. So it's in our family, but it may not show up in females because they're still menstruating until they stop. And then they realize, oh, gee, like that's not happening anymore. Your body is not, naturally getting rid of that iron every month. So we all have to go and get tested now because it might be something that, one of us have. And the side effects are like being lethargic and tired and,
which you could put down to this transition of life as well, couldn't you? Like you do get tired, you're not sleeping as well, or there are so many changes that are going on that you could simply put it down. So it is important not just to say, right, it's just because it's perimenopausal or it's a menopause transition. I should get things checked, rule things out. That's sort of a very important thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's something, that I know I've got to look into. And I think I did touch on my fertility issues when we tried to have a family. So in amongst that, we were trying for quite a few years and it wasn't happening. And so I gone to the doctor, and anyway, it was found out that I had polycystic ovaries and a little bit of endometriosis. So that was all sort of treated, and I could go on medication. I didn't have to do full IVF treatment to have children.
Yeah.
But then obviously it's come from somewhere within the family. So then we started asking. There was nothing on my mum's side of the family, but my grandmother had a hysterectomy quite early on after having my father. So maybe things back in those days, that's how they just fixed it. They just, took it out, and that fixed the problem. But yeah, so I was like, well, I don't want to be, having issues. So doing the hormonal thing, I hadn't been on any contraception since we started trying for our daughter. So I hadn't actually had any form of hormone up until I think after I had our third, and not to say that I was going to be able to conceive naturally, but just to make sure. So my doctor prescribed a Mirena, so I had that done. But I just didn't feel like that was, something that I wanted. I wasn't happy and comfortable. I knew that something foreign was there, and it really left me in a place where I didn't know where my health levels were, where my hormone levels were. Yeah. So I had that taken out and had an ablation done. Of course, I was still having this irregular, menstrual cycle. So that's been unbelievable. It's been wonderful having that. So, but once again, I don't know whether I'm definitely menopausal. I don't know how far I'm in, because I don't know whether I'm menstruating or not because of the fact that I don't have that sign every month.
Yes.
So that's where I'm at that. But yeah, you just don't have that spring in your step like you used to. You're not jumping out of bed each morning going, right, bring on the day. It's a little harder to get out of bed. And I've been an active person my whole life. I'm always doing some sort of, activity or sport or walking. And so I've really had, and I was a runner. I used to run quite a bit, and now I run and I ache. So
So you need to modify, don't you? You've got to listen to your body and just change accordingly. So go for nice long walks instead. I mean,
I do that. Yeah, and I look at different forms of activity. So I've taken up Roma Pilates, and that's been great. It's, still allowing you to do something, but just doesn't have that high impact that I was doing, that probably did make the bones ache and all those sorts of things.
It also adds that extra stress, which is going to cause the inflammation, which is going to, and it can also increase the levels of cortisol as well. So they're finding for women who are in this age group, having those stress reducing types of forms of exercise like Pilates, like yoga, like going for walks is so important. And then you've got your Pilates too, Peter, where you're working on your strength and your balance and flexibility, all things women of this age should be thinking about when it comes to movement in their body and helping that area.
Yeah. And I've also been looking at, I've recently purchased a sauna. So I've been looking at, and my husband.
Tell me about that, because yes,
my husband's
I mentioned that to my husband the other day.
Yeah. Well, my husband's family is Finnish, so it's traditional. So when we actually went to Finland for Christmas a few years ago, and I hated saunas. I just felt too overwhelmingly hot in them. But in that environment, it's the hot and the cold. So you'd go straight from the sauna into the cold, freezing cold, minus 19 degrees outside, and then back into the sauna. I know. But I also have been listening to, through a friend of mine who suggested that I listen to his podcast, is Wim Hof, who does the ice. He's the Iceman.
Yeah.
So I've been really intrigued about the ice, the hot and the cold therapy. So we're going to situate the sauna next to the pool so we can actually do that.
Brilliant.
I don't know what it's going to be like in wintertime, but that's the whole idea, is that we do that hot and cold.
Well, it's not going to be minus 19 where you live, so that's one good thing.
No, I know. But I have started by doing the cold shower, even if it's just that short burst at the end of that shower, because I just think, it does. It's the inflammation. It really does make a difference.
There's so much research with it now. It's They base it. It's not somebody just coming up with an idea that this is good for you. There's good solid research. But I was smiling when you were saying that, because I've tried the cold shower as well, which is great. I always think I can do this. So I'll start in summer, and I do. I go on, and when there's a nice heat wave, I'll have the cold shower, and then I turn into so much of a bloody sook by the end of it. It starts to get a bit cool. The weather changes a bit, and you go, oh no, a bit too cold for that today. I can't possibly.
I
So
know.
I've got to just harden up, really. And
Well, I think I've been enjoying it of late because we've had so many hot days down here in Sydney in these last
yeah.
few weeks. It's just like literally standing under the cold, and I'm thinking, can I get that any colder? I'm on full ball cold, and it's not even sort of touching the sides. I'm so hot.
That's right. Well,
So
any woman who's got hot flushes at the moment would be hearing the idea of a sauna would just about curl her toes up. She couldn't think of anything worse, I would imagine. But
I know. I think just laying in bed sometimes I feel like I'm laying in a horizontal sauna because it's just having those
yeah, the
night
starfish,
sweats.
isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, and my poor husband, like some nights I wake up and I'm just literally dripping like I've been in
Oh,
a
you poor
pool and
darling.
in the middle of the night. So, but it just goes in waves. So
Yeah, it
think
does. It does.
I think maybe the cold showers has been something to sort of,
Mm.
regulate that a little bit
Mm.
more. But yeah, I do have a friend that's been doing the breathing and the ice therapy and there's
Yeah.
lots of places. I'm not sure whether up
Mm.
your way there is,
Oh,
but
it's big up here as well. And you can get the
yeah,
little
yes.
inflatable things now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And just watching them do the breathing work and the ice
Mm.
therapy at the same time. It's just, I don't know whether it's just that mind control too. It's just
Yeah.
training your brain to be able to withstand uncomfortable situations and environments and
Yeah.
temperatures and all of that. And yeah, getting that brain training happening is important as well as the physical doing that. It's just that
Mm.
mindset. And like there's days that, I don't feel like getting out of bed and doing anything. That felt like this morning when my alarm
Yeah.
went off at 5 o'clock to go to Pilates, and I thought, really, I'd love to just roll back over and go to sleep. I thought, no, just get up, get on with the day and get it done.
Mm.
So
Mm. Oh,
it's good.
it's joy of joys, isn't it? But at least we've got that an understanding now. Because I think back, you were talking about your parents and that generation going to the doctors a lot more and medical appointments. And I look back at my mother as well. There were so many medical appointments in that last part of her life, and so much of it was due to probably not knowing as much or questioning things either. Yeah, it was always
Yeah,
a band-aid fix of you
yeah.
go to a doctor with an ailment or something, and then and especially back, we're talking 20 years or so of medications that required other medications because of side effects. And so yeah, whereas now I think for a lot of women we're seeing how we can, just with some slight and subtle lifestyle factor changes,
Mm.
we can make a difference to our health and our wellness. That
Yeah, definitely.
doesn't require a pill.
No, and I've always seen our health as being that. I've always looked into preventative medicines and looking at things naturally
Mm.
and going down that path when I can. I mean, there is a place for Western medicine, definitely, but there's
Mm.
also it's just that holistic approach,
Yes.
trying that before you resort to something else. And, keeping active, is important to me. And I've got an extremely active husband who he is quite fit, and he's just about to do an ocean swim next weekend. So he's great at sort of setting himself goals like that and working towards something. And I think that's something that I've been probably a bit lacking in of late. So I've got to set myself some goals to say, okay,
Yeah.
you're going to work towards this, and
Yeah.
because I think sometimes we just get a bit easygoing and just lackadaisy. It's nice to have that and work your way towards that goal and go, well, I achieved that goal. And I
That's
know that
right.
I've done it as I've, trained and done things like I set myself a goal to run a half marathon. And so that's what I did. But that took training and it's discipline to get there.
Yeah.
So it's just
Maintaining that motivation, isn't it?
oh,
And then
yeah.
being accountable. So that's one of the things that I have within my membership, because we look at my business that I have is one of the things I offer is a membership on where you're looking at health and wellness. And so you decide what area, and then we have monthly checkups So there's that whole that accountability and seeing how you're going and what do you need to tweak, what's working, what's not, and then setting those goals, because that is so very important.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not meeting someone to go for a walk some mornings, it's quite easy to go, I'll just roll over and go back to sleep. I won't get up and do that. So, yeah, I need someone like that to motivate me at times. I know some people just have that self-motivation and that discipline to do it, but I always find you're much more accountable when you've got to show up. Someone's watching and someone's taking a look at what you're doing. And
for sure.
So, yeah, whether it's just, I mean, I'm on a couple of different apps where people can see what fitness you're doing. And it does then become a bit more addictive. You're like, oh, okay, well, I'll do something else. And you can see the tracking of what you're doing, you know, whether it's walking, you've walked, you know, how many kilometres each week. Oh, that's a great week. I've done a lot of Ks this week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's just the motivation. Yeah. And as you get older, it is harder, absolutely harder to get out of bed, or, you know, to so much easier just to sit down and go, have a cup of tea and put my feet up because I'm tired.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's important too, to rest if and when you need it. That's, I think, because, and when we were, you know, the years before what we are now, it was go, 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 go the whole time. So it is important if we've got those moments that we really do need to stop that we do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And Peta, how has growing older changed your thinking? Like, have you noticed that, you know, I think it, I'm saying, I think it has, Peta, because I was just listening to what you were talking about, you know, over the last half an hour or so. So have you found that is a really big difference? Growing older, I'm thinking differently to what I did 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Like I feel like sometimes, like you think, like even some of the physical things that you can do, you go, I can do that. I can step up on that step. And I go, oh, actually, no, my leg doesn't seem to reach up that high anymore, you know, like, and that's just part and parcel of just getting older and your body not doing what you'd like it to do, what you think your mind can do. And that goes across anything, even having a couple of drinks and you go, oh, I had a terrible headache the next day. It's like, you just can't do that. You can't go out and, you know, not rest and sleep like you used to. Sleep is something that I know I need a lot more of. I used to be able to exist on maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep a night, where now I get 7, 8, and then I'm sure I could sleep for another 2 hours. You know? But yeah, it's definitely that's changed. And I know that I'm reading a book about sleep at the moment and the benefits of that. And I know when I don't get that sleep, I know I don't feel great. So it's a matter of actually making that. So I've got a reminder on my phone every night. It's bedtime.
Great.
And it's because otherwise the clock ticks over and you go, oh. And I've always been a bit of a night owl. I'll stay up late, but I can't do that anymore. So because I just can't bounce back like I used to be able to. So those sorts of situations, I think, are difficult. But in terms of what you can do and the knowledge that I suppose has come with age, there's a lot more of that, a lot more life experience that you have to take into account. So all the things that, you know, I probably find being young and naive, I'm not as gullible as that anymore. Like I can read people differently. And I suppose because the group of friends that I'm in, we're all turning 50, and one of our friends said, you know, no F's given. And I go, yeah, that's the motto. It's don't worry about what other people think. And she's so concerned about that. But that's the essence of it, is like, don't worry about what other people think at this age in your life, and the people around you that are uplifting and encouraging and supportive, and they're your people. So I think when you get older, you realise, or you find out, or it's reaffirmed who your people are and who supports you, and they're the ones to keep around. And
sure. No, there was a lot that you covered in that, and it's I'm going, yes, Peta, yes. There's a lot of gold nuggets in there. Not everyone enjoys this age because it can be daunting. There can be lots of things going on that aren't all that great, but it is trying to find that silver line. There is always something there if you go looking for it. And if you want to find the doom and gloom, you will find that for sure. It's dependent. You've also got to think about, all the great things that are happening. The fact that we're here.
I know.
Pretty
and I know that we
special.
I know that we spoke about it earlier about, the kids growing up. So we know that they have that level of independence now. So we don't always have to be there to do things for them. There's a little bit more flexibility. So the next couple of years we'll enjoy some of that travel and enjoy some of that time where, it's that next phase where, we still have our kids at home. But the next
you do?
Couple of years,
okay.
All three. One part-time. One's a part-time home stayer, but the rest, the other two, they're home most of.
You've got a son still at school, so of course he's going to be there.
So I don't know what the next few years will look like in terms of where they will be. So there's a lot of unknowns, and it's sad to think that they will be leaving home, but that I also think that that's an exciting time for them because that's when they start to be independent. And I think we're at that stage where now it's like, okay, so what becomes something that they take off now? Like even just paying for their own health insurance, is they're still living under your roof, but do you pay for that? It's all those grey areas, but I think there comes a time when all of that sort of has to be offloaded to them, and like this is a part and parcel of growing up and being an adult. And so we're at that stage at the moment where there's some exciting times coming up. We're looking forward to stepping back and just having a bit more time to travel, enjoy life, but also the things that come with having kids. So I'm sure down the track there will be maybe a marriage, perhaps, I don't know, a baby somewhere along the way. Not too soon. I don't want to be on grandmother babysitting duty just yet.
Not ready just yet. No. Schedule that in later in life.
That's right. Yeah.
So, Peta, what sort of life advice would you give somebody of the 40+ woman? What would you say to her that you found really valuable for yourself?
I really found that there was such a dramatic change between the age of 40 to 50. I think there's a lot of change in that, and I think keeping active is really important. And once again, I think just weighing up what's important to you and in your life and making that a priority, having people around you that are going to support you and carry you through that time. But just enjoy it, because I think there's that stigma attached to it towards 52 that, you're getting old and you can't do that. And but I think for a lot of us, it's just sort of stepping into that prime. So I think just enjoy it. There's so many changes, I think, from the age of 40 to 50, but it's a time to enjoy it and just prioritize things that are important to you.
Well, I've loved our chat today, Peta. I've really, really enjoyed getting to know you more too. It's been lovely. Now, one last question I usually have for wrap up, Peta, is if you could look into the future, what would 80-year-old Peta say about current day Peta?
Oh, I don't know. Well, just enjoy. Like, I know that you said this earlier, you're alive, you're here, enjoy what you've got, because there's so many people. It's a privilege to get to the age of 80. So enjoy all of the milestones and everything that come with them. But if I'm turning 80, I'll just be having a glass of champagne and cheering myself and my 50-year-old self. Just go, we made it to 80. So
beautiful.
That would be great. Yeah.
It would be great. All right. Thanks so much, Peta. Been great talking to you.
Thanks, Jo. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. It's all too easy to get caught up in a negative mindset and downward spiral if all you see and hear are the negatives and doom and gloom about aging. And there's no doubt that this stage of life can be challenging. Yet if all you focus on are the negatives, that's exactly what your experience will be. You don't have to settle for a life that doesn't light you up. You can actually create a life that you're in love with. And it's never too late. So much can change in a year, And I know this because I've been there and experienced it myself. So if you are ready to take that next step, I would love to invite you to Reimagine, my 4-week group mentoring program. We start on the 20th of April, and I'm welcoming women into the program now. The energy and the conversations and support are going to be next level. So if you're wanting to step into that next half of life, feeling inspired and excited, then this program is exactly for you. You're going to be able to get weekly mentoring to get the clarity to see what's possible. You'll be around other high vibe women, and you'll get the support, resources, and steps to design your new future. And you soon find that when you surround yourself with other high vibe women who are ready and excited for the future, then your energy and the way you view your future will change. To join Reimagine, head to joeclarkcoaching.com, email me at joe@joeclarkcoaching.com, or send me a DM on socials to get all the information. And I can't wait for you to join and see what's possible ahead.